David Bowie has passed away at the age of 69 after an 18-month-long battle with cancer. Now, of course, very many people are saddened by this, but he does have an incredible life that everyone is talking about and celebrating today. These stories are always really difficult to report because I don't really know what to say about them, except that, you know, he had a tremendous amount of influence on music, on society. You know, the fact that he was bold with his, you know, desire to appear androgynous. I mean, that was pretty ballsy, especially considering when he was... Right. Especially considering when he really shot up to fame, which was pretty much in the 70s. He's an incredible person. He was an incredible person. And I have some more on his background. But before I get to that, Cenk, jump in.
Yeah, look, it's difficult when anybody you know dies. What do you say, right? But even if you don't know them, it's still a difficult thing to talk about someone after they've passed. Now, so the way we do that, obviously, we'll give you context on his life, stuff that I didn't know, honestly, because I'm not much of a music guy. So his first breakout hit was Fame, and I thought, oh, Fame, na 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 na. No, not that one? Okay, so obviously, I don't know much about David Bowie. No, I grew up in a time when he was enormously famous, so I obviously know who he is and some of his songs, but I didn't know his backstory. So at first, his backstory starts questionable. Hold, we're gonna get to the good parts. Okay, so he played the saxophone and started a mime company.
Do you, boo? Do you, boo? There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, no, agree to disagree.
No,
okay.
But first of all, the saxophone is one of my favorite instruments. Rolling Stones would use the saxophone all the time in their music, and every time they do, I get a little excited.
Wow.
I get like a little tingly feeling.
Okay.
I'm really into it.
Okay, so now again, I'm not a musician. There's nothing wrong with the saxophone, obviously.
Yeah.
He did glam rock, art rock, soul, hard rock, dance pop, punk, and electronica. Okay, I'm not into it. God bless his heart. And mimes, I'm definitely not into. Okay, we've gotten that out of the way. Now all the great stuff. Okay, so I think he was way ahead of his time in so many different things.
Yeah.
So first of all, he does this flamboyant, as you point out, androgynous alter ego, Ziggy Stardust. He does that back in 1972.
It's ballsy.
Dude, man, way ahead of the time. I know that around that time, well, you know, there was a lot of in the 1960s and early 1970s, there's experimentation, there's new things that are happening. But, I mean, we're still having, you know, conversations about Caitlyn Jenner. Is that right? Is that not right? And here's a guy who, by some accounts, was not at all gay. By some accounts, might have been bisexual. By the way, I say by some accounts because he said in an interview, I'm gay.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I give you the details on that?
Yes.
Because that's really, really interesting. Okay, so he understood how the media works and how you get attention. And so he did something extremely bold, okay? In an attempt to stir interest in Ziggy Stardust, which of course is his alter ego, Bowie revealed in a January 1972 magazine interview that he was gay, though that might have been a publicity stunt. He dyed his hair orange and began wearing women's garb. The album became a sensation. So, was he gay? I
mean, obviously he's married to Iman for an
that's
enormously long period of time. He's
Yeah.
got kids. So he's at a minimum bisexual,
Yes,
right?
yes.
At a minimum meaning like he's definitely at least somewhat heterosexual, right? So he might be completely heterosexual. He might have done it as a thing. But look, it opened up people's minds in a lot of ways. Certainly not something people were doing in 1955.
Right.
Right? So I view that as very positive. Then he became the first rock star to morph into an internet service provider in 1998 when he launched BowieNet.
Amazing.
Way ahead of his time.
I love it.
Right? So whether you enjoyed his music, and an enormous number, millions upon millions of people did, or whether you just you know, enjoyed him for the character that he was, a really interesting guy, there's a lot to love about David Bowie. Now, I think the 1982 story about MTV just puts it way over the top for me.
Yes, absolutely. So back in 1982, David Bowie was being interviewed by someone at MTV, and he noticed something a little strange about MTV. Even though there were a number of very talented black artists out there, they didn't get much airtime on MTV. So Bowie decided to call that out while talking to Mark Goodman, who was one of the higher ups within MTV. Okay, so here's what happened. David Bowie asked him, "Why are there practically no blacks on the networks?" And Mark Goodman replied, We seem to be doing music that fits into what we want to play on MTV. The company is thinking in terms of narrow casting.
Okay, already that sounds disastrous. It's about to get much worse.
Yes. So Bowie responds, there seem to be a lot of black artists making very good videos that I'm surprised aren't being used on MTV. Goodman replies, we have to try to do what we think not only New York and Los Angeles will appreciate, but also Poughkeepsie and the Midwest. Pick some town in the Midwest which would be scared to death by a string of other black faces or black music. We have to play music we think an entire country is going to like, and certainly we're a rock and roll station. That wasn't good enough for Bowie. He responded by saying, don't you think it's a frightening predicament to be in? And Goodman says, yeah, but no less so than in radio. Bowie said, don't say, well, it's not me, it's them. Is it not possible it should be a conviction of the station and of the radio stations, to be fair, to make the media more integrated?
Awesome. I mean, that's back in 1982. MTV is a huge player even back then. And so an artist might think like, wait, this is important to my career. I better not mess with the hand that's feeding me, right? And instead he comes out and says, no, I'm gonna call you to the carpet, right? You've got all these great black artists and you're not playing any of them. And the guy admits it. See, and he even did a follow-up question. Even though he's the one doing the interviewing, he did an excellent act of journalism there where he wouldn't let it go. And then he said to him, look, it's also on you. Don't make this like, hey, everybody else jumped off the bridge, right?
I love it.
Right, and he got him to admit, yeah, we're not playing the black artists. And because of this thing, and by the way, I heard that decades later, you know, when I was part of a cable thing, I've told this story before, not MSNBC, when I was a writer at another cable station, and they said, well, we have to pick hosts that are acceptable to the Midwest. And they said about Ben, who was up for one of the spots, and it's crazy. I'm in the room. I'm one of the writers. Ben is one of my best friends. And they say, well, he has too much of a New York intellectual look. Okay. Now, the guy who said that was also Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't make it any better. And so this insane stereotype and discrimination has been going on in the media industry, unfortunately, for so long. And Midwest is a code word for we're picking white people here.
Yes, that's exactly right. But you know what? To be fair to MTV, they did right their wrongs. They just don't play any music videos at all anymore. So they're just discriminating against all artists.
So yeah, MTV might be a little dated, but David Bowie, apparently timeless.